Hello, everyone, and welcome on in to the Full Court Press. Jason Walker here. Will be joined by Eric Frandsen shortly as we're previewing, reviewing a lot more than we are previewing. Some crazy stuff that happened last night in the Mountain West. I guess it's just another day in the Mountain West, as they say, just as we can't have simple things in the Mountain West. But thank you so much for joining us here on 106.9 FM, 1390 AM, The Fan, streaming online at 1069thefan.com and on the 106.9 The Fan mobile app, and streaming live on YouTube at The Fan KLGN is the YouTube account to go check out, where you'll be able to see myself and Eric Frandsen. And you're going to want to check that out at least after the first about half hour of this show. It's that time of year where there's a lot of games happening with Utah Mammoth and with the Utah Jazz when they go on their Eastern, road trips. They end up cutting into our show, but that's the benefit of throwing this live on YouTube is that, we get to just keep going. We'll cut ties with the radio. Those of you who want to listen to, it'll be the Mammoth. It's today, Mammoth at the Flyers is where they're going to be at. So.
Oh, if I'm on. There
we go. Well, you were late, Eric, so I hadn't turned on your microphone
I've been here
yet.
the whole time. What are you talking about? But maybe this would be a really interesting Mammoth broadcast to listen to because they've made some moves here.
That's true. I don't think any of those moves are going to take impact yet, though.
No, I mean, players won't be on the ice, but this is their first broadcast since deals have been made, so they'll talk about it.
Yeah, so that's something that we'll be going over, the impact of trading for Mackenzie Weegar. Mammoth trying to make some win now moves. There were some other moves that I believe they were of course, there was a report that they had their hands in a million different pies. Like, they are going out, win now. There was another deal where apparently somebody was asking for the moon, the sun, and the stars, and the goddess Freya as their wife, in return for some player. But that was just... The Mammoth didn't go for that trade, but we're going to talk a little bit more in this show. And let's get into it because, again, we have until about 4:27 when we'll cut ties with the radio portion of the broadcast. So we're going to spend that time talking about the Mountain West and the title race. Utah State are Mountain West champions, so congratulations to the Aggies. Then talking a little bit about Utah State, their own performance home and away, but probably before we get to that, we'll jump into some Mountain West tournament scenarios. We've got a couple of different scenarios we're going to have. In fact, we're going to have some visuals on the YouTube stream to kind of help visualize this, how the seedings would work out depending on different types of results that happen. We won't be able to go through every single one of them because there are a lot of different small ways this can go. But we'll kind of give an idea of how, if the Aggies win or lose, and then if the more predictable results play out, what would the situation be like? So, Eric, let's jump into last night's game. It's been a rough go for the Mountain West top teams. There are 3 teams that, as of yet, can actually still secure a share of the Mountain West title. Utah State has clinched it. They are, as of now, Mountain West champions. They got to tweet out the graphic last night, put it all over their socials. Utah State will be bringing home a Mountain West Conference title. But sitting at 14-5, there are 2 other teams that could catch the Aggies if Utah State loses. They would fall to 14-6, and that would put New Mexico at 14-6 since they're the team that plays the Aggies. And then San Diego State, they face UNLV. And if they beat UNLV, they would also get to 14-6, and we could have, I think, our second ever 3-way tie for first place in Mountain West history. I think there was one other that I'm aware of.
I saw, and I haven't been able to find it again just because I should have retweeted it earlier when I saw it, but I saw somebody created a little emoji. It's a guy playing Uno, and he has all these cards in his hand. And then on one of the cards, it represents Utah State, San Diego State, and New Mexico. It's like win one game to secure the Mountain West title.
Yeah.
If not, draw 25.
Basically.
It's like it's been so tough for any one of these 3 teams to definitively separate All Utah State needed to do was win two of their last 5 games, to really lock it up and be definitive. But they haven't been able to do that. New Mexico has had opportunities to sneak in there. They haven't been able to do that. Same thing with San Diego State. Like, it's tough to win on the road in the Mountain West in late February and early March.
Yeah. So actually, I misspoke. There was one. Okay, I wasn't crazy. I was scrolling down all of the regular season titles. It's on the Mountain West Championship or Mountain West website. Lists all the champions, and you can have multiple champions in a season because they don't do a tiebreaker to determine a regular season champion. If you have the same record, doesn't matter if you got swept by the other team, you get a share of the title. They do tiebreakers for tournament seeding, but there were actually 2. I went from there being 1 to 0 to 2, all in the span of about 3 seconds in my head. Huh. The first one, actually, in the second ever season of the Mountain West, there was a 3-way championship between BYU, Utah, and Wyoming. And then in 2009, BYU and Utah were again both tied, but sharing that pie was New Mexico. So we've had 2 different 3-way ties for the regular season championship in the Mountain West. Both of them involving teams from Utah. Are we going to see that again? And we're going to see, New Mexico involved in a 3-way tie for the title?
Let's hope not.
They would make things so much simpler if they didn't. But I don't know how much of the game you watched, Eric. We were able to catch the whole thing. I was able to watch most of it.
I'll be honest. I actually kind of forgot that it was going on, and then that
happened to me in the San Diego State New Mexico game
because so much happened the night before. I just wasn't thinking about. Oh yes, there's one more game. And so by the time I became wise to the fact, Colorado State was winning the game. I know New Mexico tried to make a push to make it somewhat interesting over the course of it, but I really didn't watch much of that game. I saw that the Rams had it in control, kind of gave up a little bit more than they should have. That game was closer than it really needed to be, but the Rams got it done. But yeah, I honestly, I missed a big chunk of that game last night.
Yeah, so I missed kind of the first part of it as I was running errands, getting food and whatnot. But I was able to watch the vast majority of it, and to see Colorado State where, their defense, where I've kind of bagged on their defense, much of course that's what the analytics say, is that their defense isn't particularly great, and even during their winning streak hasn't necessarily been great. But they were playing really solid defense against New Mexico, and then they were doing everything they needed to on offense. It was a bit irregular, and I think that's something that caught New Mexico off guard, is that while you had Kyle Jorgensen hit 5 3-pointers, which that can really hurt you, that is on the scouting report, though.
Yeah.
What isn't necessarily on the scouting report is Rashawn Mbemba hitting 3 3-pointers.
No. That's the last guy you think of. Will pop a 3 in your face.
Yeah, because you know how many 3-pointers he had hit all season before that this last night's game?
3?
No, 2.
2. And then he hits 3 of 4 in their game last night.
And I guess in his defense, when he's on because his other 2 3-pointers before last night were also in the same game. He went 2 of 2 against Boise State, a month and a half back. So I guess he's like Drake Allen, where it's he's either not hitting from the outside or he's draining multiple in your eyeball. So that's something that I think really caught New Mexico off guard, is that suddenly you have Rashawn Mbemba, who come in and play a key bench role as kind of some big muscle inside, and he provides a lot of value in that regard. But suddenly he was stretching the floor, where Jace Butler, Brandon Reichsteiner, they weren't really hitting 3-pointers the way they normally do. They combined to go 1 of 7. That's normally where a bunch of their 3-pointers are coming from, but they weren't really getting outside shooting from their guards where they normally do. Plus, you get some from Kyle Jorgensen. He's able to stretch the floor. And so they were really struggling to defend Colorado State. Although, once that surprise wore off, about midway through the first half, the Rams basically stalled. They were stuck in the 60s and 70s in point total for a long time, while New Mexico caught up like the Rams just suddenly kind of went cold. It's kind of like what they did against Utah State to a degree, where they were unstoppable in one half and then suddenly everything just kind of disappeared once the team figured them out.
Yeah, they built up like a nearly 20-point lead, and then they didn't really do a heck of a whole lot after that for a big chunk of time.
Yeah, they just seemed like, and it's weird because sometimes like teams will like slow down, and a team like Utah State will slow down. You'd be like, well, it's because they slow down and they're not used to playing that pace, and so things just don't work out for them as well on offense. But Colorado State, that is their pace. Yeah. They play one of the slowest paces in the country, so I don't think you can explain it that way. They just overall slowed down where they weren't getting tons of three-pointers in the second half. They did get some, and they did score 42 points in the second half. Like, I don't want to act like their defense completely shut down, but a lot of those 42 points for the second half were a little early on, and then they caught fire enough at the end to kind of hold off a New Mexico run because they got within, I think, 6 points. I can't remember off the top of my head just how close it was, but it was single digits a couple of different times.
Well, they got it within 4, about 30 seconds to go. So they almost had a complete and total collapse.
That's true, yeah.
But they were able to hang on, make their free throws, create that little bit of separation, and really, literally just hang on. And then they end up winning it by 8. But that's because it became a free throw shooting contest.
Yeah, you get some free throw in there, and they're just kind of jacking some 3-pointers. If you extend that game by 5 minutes, New Mexico probably wins it.
Yeah, the trajectory they were on. They had the momentum.
Yeah, so
they just were too slow in getting it started.
That kind of makes it interesting because if Colorado State wins this one by those 19 points that they got it up to, again, it was either, I can't remember if they actually got the margin over to 20. I think it may have.
No, 19 I think was the biggest lead.
But essentially 20 points.
Yeah.
If they'd have won by that margin, that changes a lot of probably what you think about this game. In that not only did they win, but they won by a margin similar to what Utah State put up, and it would reinforce more of what is now a very legit Colorado State team. I've been very hesitant to give them their due credit because of the schedule they've had. With playing, they're on 8-game win streak now, and 6 of those opponents are in kind of the bottom half of the conference, but. A win at UNLV looks a lot better than maybe it should in retrospect, given how teams have struggled there. Nevada and Utah State both losing there. And then wins over San Diego State and on the road at New Mexico, which is probably their most impressive win of all that.
Yeah, the hottest teams in the Mountain West are arguably the 2 teams that are tied for 5th. 2 teams that you probably don't want to face in the tournament right now are tied in 5th place. And one of those is Boise, and the other one is Colorado State. Those are some teams that are playing some really good basketball right now. Certainly UNLV is a wild card too, and they're in that mix. Any of those teams really. Nevada even has moments too. Like Colorado State, Boise State, Nevada, and UNLV are all tied at 11-8. And I don't know if I'd feel real comfortable facing any one of those teams. I mean, the Aggies obviously have had
if you're the
huge
Aggies
matchup opportunity against Boise State, which I think you favor. But still, like all 4 of those teams are really good basketball teams, and they're 4th or tied for 5th technically in the standings.
Yeah. So the Mountain West tournament is definitely going to be weird, where you feel like there 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 teams that have a solid chance of winning it. But 2 of those with Colorado State and Boise State, like I'm more inclined to believe Colorado State because I'm seeing more impressive wins. Again, apparently winning at UNLV has become harder than we expected it to be. But with Boise State, I don't know. I mean, they have wins against Nevada and New Mexico. Maybe I'm doubting them too. I had them further down on my power rankings, but I guess I was looking more at losses to UNLV and then getting blown out by Utah State than maybe I read too far into those, where over their last 4 games they've played pretty impressively, including a win over San Diego State. Although it might be perfect then that Boise State and Colorado State are playing each other this Saturday. So that might be the perfect ending to the regular season, where it's those two that are potentially the hottest teams, really, where they're both on 4+ game winning streaks. Boise's won 6 out of their last 8 with wins over San Diego State, New Mexico, and Nevada. And then Colorado State with 8 straight, including wins over New Mexico and San Diego State.
Yeah, there are 3 really big games between Friday and Saturday. The game on Friday with San Diego State and UNLV. And then on Saturday, Utah State, New Mexico, Boise State, Colorado State. Big implications for standings and how the tournament's going to look. Are you in the early session? Are you in the later session? Who do you face in the second round?
Yeah.
It's all up in the air right now for these teams. So really, really big last games on the schedule for quite a few teams here, for 6 teams especially.
What's funny is that, so UNLV San Diego State, that's on CBS Sports Network. Neither of New Mexico, Utah State, or Boise State, Colorado State are on any kind of network television.
No,
it's Mountain West Network.
The biggest games are, you got to find them on a streaming service.
Yeah, basically going to just be beautiful
and
television.
You don't know what you're going to get with who the play-by-play announcers are going to sound like.
Just listen to the radio if you're listening to Utah State, New Mexico. I can't speak for Boise or Colorado State's play-by-play, but I'm sure they're fine. 9-3-1-5 on the Young Power Sports of Logan text line. And if you want to join the show, you can do so via the text line, 435-339-0321. And 9-3-1-5 saying, strange to think at the end of the show, USU was not championing, and now they are in that time.
What an emotional 24-hour swing for Aggie fans. Well, you go from frustrating loss on the road. It's like, oh my gosh, terrible road performance. The sky is falling. Nobody's getting along. And then all of a sudden, Colorado State beats New Mexico. And we're seeing the graphics shared by Utah State in the Mountain West. Like, congratulations, you want to share the Mountain West title. Yeah. Wait, what? Hey, I feel good now.
Well, it's weird because, I'm creating, YouTube thumbnails for, the videos in the clips that I make. And, there's the one before the UNLV games, can they clinch a share of the Mountain West title? And the next day it's just collapse. And you got Jared Calhoun throwing his arms up in the air. And it's it's a bit of clickbait type stuff because that's the game you got to play with YouTube. But, then today it's okay, well, now they win the Mountain West title. What the heck am I supposed to do? We're just going from one end to the other, of the spectrum of
Cue Queen with "We Are the Champions."
Basically, Alexa, play Queen by play "We Are the Champions." Yeah, because I kind of said as much on social media where it's this might be the weirdest feeling Utah State fans have ever had in the moment in which their team was named champions, because there were a lot of fans who started to kind of lose faith in their team because of the UNLV and the fact they've lost 3 out of the last 4. There are people who are worried. There's a collapse. You have the extreme, wings of the fan base that are calling for Jared Calhoun to leave, or they'll be like, oh, if he leaves, I won't miss him, and that kind of crap. But I think in the end, the fan base, as I was saying yesterday, once they got a good sleep, then the optimism was generally back. But now, you get to share the Mountain West title. Despite, losing 3 out of your last 4, nobody in the Mountain West really wanted to lay claim on the Mountain West championship, at least by the way they played. And as you said, the 2 hottest teams are the teams that are going to be 4th and 5th. Or 5th
and 6th.
However it ends up falling out.
5, 6, 7, and 8. Yeah. Any combination of those 4 teams in there, it's wild the differences on who you could face and what your second round would look like.
Yeah, but you had, Utah State and San Diego State, New Mexico, all the chance. Nevada was playing themselves into a chance to win by the end. Of course, I think it was a funny thing. I think I was talking with a Colorado State fan on Twitter, where I think it was after Nevada beat Utah State, I think. It was after one of those back-to-back wins, and they're saying, hey, if Colorado State keeps the win streak going, then they could be fighting with Nevada for, I think they said something like the 5th seed or something like that. And I was like, Yeah, if Colorado State wins out, but I'm not sure they'll do that. They got games against New Mexico and in San Diego State, and then I don't think Nevada. Nevada would have to lose like several of their last few games, and I was like, I don't think they're going to lose games against UNLV and Wyoming and Air Force. Well, since I said that, they've lost to UNLV, lost to Wyoming, and what do you know? You look at the standings. Colorado State, Boise State, and Nevada are all tied for that 5th place spot. So something that I largely dismissed as very unlikely. Well, that turns out, like, again, it may not be the race for the Mountain West title, but like, that's just another way where like your top 3 is screwing up. Your 4 through 6 are going through this bizarro situation here. It's just, it's a bunch of craziness that's going on right now with all these teams.
Yeah, it's so crazy, but it makes it fun because you're paying attention to every game, every outcome. Games that your team isn't involved with matter, and you're paying attention to them. So it's an exciting time of the year.
Yeah,
to see like how the season ends. What does your conference tournament look like? How does that affect your ability to get to the NCAA tournament? It's a really, really fun time of the year. And look, we've had years where for Utah State, it's like we hope they got to do well in the conference tournament because they're not going to get in based on their regular season body of work. That's not a discussion this year. They're going to get in.
Yeah, it's
a matter of where do they land, and so that's why the game Saturday is still crucial. I hope there's a good crowd, lots of noise. Give this Utah State team a lot of juice because they play really well at home. And they really need to win this one at home and have a good fan support to get them across the goal line there.
9-5. I'm just going to read this as is. It says all the fans from USU after people's head on the team all need to take that USU dairy milk and suck their bottle in bed and get over themselves because USU basketball is doing really well and we should try to keep everyone. Yeah, like.
I'm glad you read that.
It's well, the point is there, and it was kind of what I was trying to do on yesterday's show was try and just play that. I don't know if it was centrist or a calming voice, which maybe sound a little bit more optimistic. I don't know how it came off as, but my attempt was
voice of reason.
Yeah, voice of reason, but trying to be this like, hey, that game absolutely sucked for Utah State, and they looked like dog water, tasted like it too probably. That was horrible, and there is no way to sugarcoat it. You could not sugarcoat it, but it's trying to understand the place the Utah State is in. They're still in a good place. There was still a chance for them to win the Mountain West title without even playing another game. That turned out to happen, as unlikely as it was. And while there are legitimate concerns, and I'm not going to brush them off, there are legitimate concerns about the way Utah State is playing right now and the way they need to be playing to win a Mountain West tournament, to win an NCAA tournament game. There is a gap right now between the Aggies as they are and the kind of team that wins an NCAA tournament game. They are not playing like that kind of team. But there's every chance they can turn this around. Now, we may or may not get a good look at that, whether the Aggies have bridged that gap on, when they play New Mexico, because as I was diving into the numbers and I kind of put it out on social media, they play way better at home, like to a scary degree, like scary in part that they play so bad on the road, to be honest, but they play way better at home. And so you will probably see a better version of the Aggies. But the thing is, the Mountain West tournament, probably the biggest thing we'll learn about the Mountain West tournament is how well the Aggies are able to do on a neutral court. And that could end up helping us understand what they would be in the NCAA tournament. Because if they blow out, New Mexico by 30 points at home, and then go lose in the semifinal, like underperform in the quarterfinal game, lose in the semifinal game, that probably doesn't bode well for the NCAA tournament. But if they win, however they end up, if they win against New Mexico, if they pull that off, close, blowout, whatever, and then they go perform well in the Mountain West tournament, that would bode well. Again, it wouldn't be so much what happens in the New Mexico game. It's all about the Mountain West tournament. That determines how well they perform in the NCAA tournament. Of course, how well they perform on Saturday determines whether or not they're outright Mountain West champions. So there are multiple things the Aggies are working with here. That's going to do it for us here in our radio portion of the show. Those of you listening on 106.9 FM, 1390 AM, that is going to shift over to the Mammoth at Flyers game as that broadcast will take over. Those of you watching on YouTube, we will be here. We'll take a quick break as the board resets. But those of you listening on the radio, feel free to join us. The Fan KLGN on YouTube. We'll keep the stream going and talk about more topics here, including the Mountain West Tournament.
The chips and drinks are endless. The burrito is huge for only $7.95. It's got to be Cafe Sabor, Cache Valley's best Mexican restaurant and gold medal winner in the Best of Northern Utah contest. Experience Locals Day every Thursday with a huge burrito, endless chips and soda, only $7.95. Finding any lunch under $10 is nearly impossible. Every Thursday, drinks, chips, and a massive burrito. You pay just $7.95. The food, the fun at Cafe Sabor in the historic train station on 6th West and Center in Logan.
Express tires for less. In and out with zero stress. Express tires for less. In and out with zero stress.
Express Point S, nationwide warranty on all new tires.
Copiers, printers, service, and supplies are just the beginning. Les Olson IT is the premier source for your business's structured cabling, IT, software, telephones, and security systems. We partner with you to find the ideal solution to all of your office technology needs. Tell us your goals and we'll get you there. Find out more at lesolson.com.
Les Olson IT.
We're talking with Tyson from Mountain Valley Heating and Air Conditioning about air quality.
Yeah, I think a lot of people would be surprised to learn that the air inside your home is 5 times worse than the air outside.
So Tyson, what can people do?
We install steam humidifiers into homes. Steam humidifiers use 1 gallon of water per hour, and they use 100% of that 1 gallon to humidify the air in your home. So if you call Mountain Valley, we'll come out and do a free assessment and see if it's a good fit for you. The phone number is 435-753-5170.
This is Jay with Daryl's Appliance. We're springing forward with a new weekly special. Today, save on Bosch dishwashers. Our best-selling Bosch dishwasher is only $721. Waiting for your tax refund? You can apply for financing for as low as $61 a month for 12 months. See store for details. Come see us today and experience the Daryl's difference. Daryl's Appliance, family-owned, community-trusted, west on Airport Road, open until 6 on weekdays, 5 on Saturday.
The Napa Gold Filter Sale is going on now. All Napa filters are on sale up to 60% off. Car, truck, semi, tractor, backhoe, track hoe, ATV, side-by-side, lawnmower, and more. Napa Premium 15W40 diesel oil, $12.99 per gallon. Valvoline Premium Blue 5W40 synthetic, $24.99 per gallon. That means you can service your diesel with the premium oil and a Napa Gold filter for less than $45. The Napa Gold Filter Sale is going on now. From Preston to Providence,
All right, and we are back on YouTube after the board made its transition. So those of you, if you're wanting to listen to Utah Mammoth, they take on where are the Flyers at again?
Flyers.
I think Dayton, but that's the college team. So
it shows our ignorance about the NHL. Philadelphia.
Philadelphia, okay.
Yeah.
So, yeah, if you want to listen to the Utah Mammoth, sure they'll be talking about their new acquisition.
Which is interesting because the Jazz were just in Philadelphia.
Oh, that's right. And they dang near won, too.
Yes, they did.
They almost won, but they lost, which is good.
Another perfect game for the Utah Jazz.
Yeah, another perfect tank. 2-4-4-4 on the – how many fours did I say there?
Yeah, you got it right.
Okay. Texting in, let's get to this before we jump into some Mountain West Championship, some Mountain West tournament scenarios for Utah State. They ask, do you guys think there's a chance that Tucker Anderson will start on Saturday? I've been wondering for much of the season if he may be the type of player who will transfer in the offseason. It seems like he's been passed by some of the younger incoming players, but if he can get back in the rotation, maybe that'll increase his chances of staying at USU. Yeah, I don't know. Tucker Anderson feels like it's kind of the same feeling I got about Isaac Johnson, where he just kind of ended up slowly being pushed out of the rotation. Had some moments, I think, later in the season, but and of course, with Danny Sprinkle, had that, his biggest game was, against TC, or at least his most memorable game, memorable performance. But it just seemed to end up fitting better for him to go to Hawaii. And I mean, you should go see what he's doing at Hawaii. He's having a really nice year. Yeah. I think there was a feature story written about him the other day, just the way that he's, basketball's been funner for him, where he's at Hawaii, and they're fixing to make the NCAA tournament out of the Big West.
Yeah, they're having a great year, and he's a big part of that. Different players in different systems, it works.
Yeah.
And
I think when you look at Tucker Anderson, he should work. That's the thing, is that it just doesn't make sense why it hasn't. And I think some of it is that he was basically trying to play a position that I think doesn't work with maybe his skill set, where he needed to be bigger, stronger, and that's not necessarily his play style. And I don't say that as a knock against Tucker Anderson. It's just he is a 6'9", perimeter player, and he needs to be able to play a versatile, kind of pseudo big man, like a stretch four, like Taylor Funk. And, he just hasn't necessarily been that. Heck, Adlon Elming has struggled to be that, where he has a little bit more potential to play that kind of role, where he's a bit longer and a bit more athletic. And Tucker has given it his best go. He added a lot of weight to try and play that role, but a lot of times it can just be a mentality. And again, I don't say that in this negative way as if he's soft. Some people just have a mentality that is better suited for different play styles, for different archetypes.
Yeah.
Like, you're just a different kind of player.
I know we had the conversation earlier, should Adlon Elming be playing, and is he at risk of losing his starting position? And he's been struggling a little bit. In the moment, we're like, well, who's going to replace him? Because at the time, Tucker Anderson really had one game where he played meaningful minutes.
Yeah,
and then he has another game where he plays meaningful minutes again when Adlon struggles. I don't think Adlon Elming is at risk of losing his starting position still.
Yeah, I think.
But if he doesn't perform, it could be that Tucker ends up playing more minutes than him at that position. But I think Adlon is still the starter.
Yeah, Adlon will start, but against New Mexico or even in the Mountain West tournament, you could see him have a game where he starts but doesn't play very much. He played 1 minute in the second half against UNLV, and Tucker Anderson and Carson Temple were in pretty quickly for Zach and for Adlon. So that's something we'd see. It's fairly likely. I don't want to speculate too much, but it seems fairly likely that Tucker Anderson just kind of needs a new system because, again, where Isaac went to Hawaii, Isaac has a skill set, has things that make him a good center, but that just didn't work, at Utah State. And Utah State benefits from that same kind of dynamic where MJ Collins was a rotation player for two different power conference teams. He comes to Utah State and he becomes, a all Mountain West caliber player.
Yeah.
And, some of that could be argued by not playing in a power conference, but he just immediately came in and balled out, and despite slumping a little bit, has still been a productive player for the Aggies. So a lot of times, system and system fit end up mattering. Where Tucker Anderson has the talent to be a capable player, you just wonder if at this point it's just not working system wise for him.
Yeah, maybe. There were stretches last year where he was out of sorts. But then there were games where he won the game for Utah State at San Diego. So, would I like to see more Tucker Anderson? Yeah, I think he's a guy who has potential, but does he have confidence? And that's, we've talked about this before. I don't really love sometimes if a player is struggling and coach yanks him and never gives him a chance to redeem himself. It's like he's made up his mind. That player is done for me for the rest of the game. I cannot rely on him. He is done. But he doesn't provide very many second chances or sometimes third chances.
Yeah.
So, is Adlon still in a slump? I don't know, maybe. Maybe he just needed a chance to get home and reset to finish things out.
He played well against
seen freshmen go through slumps.
Yeah. He played well against New Mexico last time out, so maybe this will be a good rebound game for him.
I'd love to see him play. I'd love to see, even if Adeline's like on and he's having a great game, I'd still like to see Tucker get some minutes, because there might be a stretch where Adeline is off and you're going to need to go to Tucker more often. And so getting him in the flow, getting him connected, confidence, like, I believe in you. I just may not need you in certain stretches, but there are going to be times where I really need you. And if I'm just riding the bench and just come on all of a sudden out of nowhere, that can be kind of hard to get those juices flowing like they need to be.
Yeah. Let's shift over toward Mountain West Championship, Mountain West Tournament scenarios. But first, do want to thank one of our sponsors of our program, Napa Auto Parts. They got batteries, headlights, wiper blades. It's all in stock and on sale now at your local Napa Auto Parts. Chemical Guys car wash and detailing kits, only $49.99. Pick up the last bags of Blue Heat Ice Melt, just $10. In air fresheners, snow scrapers, shop towels, seafoam, and more. It's all on sale at your locally owned Napa Auto Parts stores. They got locations from Preston all the way down to Providence. So let's look at Mountain West Tournament bracket. And I've got a couple of different brackets. For those, I guess now, well, everyone's watching on YouTube. Nobody's listening on radio.
Yep.
I'll put on screen here the bracket. And if you go to, it's this like bball.notnothing.net, and you can actually generate these brackets, and it has the tiebreakers all built in, and you can pick and choose, like, if this team wins this game and if that team wins that game. It really takes the headache out of doing this sometimes. And so I've got the bracket up, and the way this situation works out that I've got is if Utah State wins, and all of the teams that are favored according to KenPom, if they end up winning. So that is that's where Utah State's favored over New Mexico, so that pans out there. It would have San Diego State winning over UNLV is their favored 83-72 by KenPom. Grand Canyon over Fresno State, they're favored by 10. Colorado State beating Boise State. Nevada beating Air Force. And then Wyoming beating San Jose. And I think that goes over all the different games. So basically, if the favored team wins, and in this case, Utah State as the favored team also wins. And so that's what's showing up on screen now. I didn't print this out to show to Eric, so he's actually the only person who can't see this right now.
Oh, I got it up. I'm looking at it.
Oh, do you have the stream?
Yeah,
there we go.
I'm watching ourselves.
You're watching our own stream.
One of the two people watching.
Yeah, basically. So we've got so if Utah State wins, they're the 1 seed. They're the outright champion. And you end up with Boise State and Wyoming in that 8-9 game. And that's a pretty solid, I think, 8-9 game for the Aggies to end up facing. I know Boise State's kind of hot right now, and Wyoming can be a challenge, but those are two very winnable games for the Aggies. One, they have, much like UNLV just has the Aggies' number, Utah State has Boise's number. Now, maybe there's going to be something that changes. Maybe there's a surprise. Again, Boise has beaten Nevada, New Mexico, and San Diego State in the last month-ish. So that is still a dangerous team. But again, Utah State just seems to have something where they can go up against the Broncos and come out on top. On that same side of the bracket, you ended with Grand Canyon at 4, Nevada at 5, and then Air Force in there. So pretty much guaranteeing a Grand Canyon-Nevada second-round matchup. And while those are, Utah State's lost to both of those teams, they were close, losses on the road, relatively close. The loss to Grand Canyon was by 10 points, but it was a relatively close game. Barely lost to Nevada at home, but put on a neutral site. And I think you like the Aggies' chances against both those teams, provided that they can overcome, Nevada and Grand Canyon in the games the Aggies lost. They struggled to defend the paint. If they can find a way to defend the paint like they did in the win over Nevada, like they did in the win over Grand Canyon, it basically becomes a coin flip of, do the Aggies control the paint? If they do, they win that semifinal matchup, provided they would have also beaten either Boise or Wyoming. And if they don't do that, they end up losing in the semifinal. So I think that works out as a really solid upper side of the bracket for the Aggies.
Yeah, I don't mind that at all. There's no real easy path here.
No, there never is. Like,
especially the way everybody's like taking turns beating each other.
Yeah, like because in the quarterfinals, you face a team that's like top 60 in KenPom, and in the semifinal, you face two teams that you lost to.
Yeah,
like there isn't a single easy game for the Aggies. The only easy game they would have is if they were playing in the first round.
Right. Yeah.
And even then, pretty much only if they were playing Air Force or San Jose.
Yeah. Yeah. So certainly the best case scenario for Utah State is to win on Saturday, be the number 1 seed. For multiple reasons. The timing of when games are played in that side of the bracket is much more advantageous than if you're in the afternoon bracket and the other times that take place. You get the extra rest. You can scout your opponents in real time, and the type of teams that you're going to face, I think, are going to be a little bit better for Utah State. But because you look at this, these are teams that Utah State at some point has beaten. Like, they have proven to themselves that they can beat these teams on that side of the bracket. There's some teams that they've struggled with a little bit, but their odds, I believe, are better with the teams that would be on their side of the bracket if they can still lock up the number 1 seed. That's why Saturday is so important. Yes, they've got a share of the Mountain West title, but clinch it outright. Leave no doubt. Win the regular season. Put yourself in the best position when this tournament takes place next week because of the other matchups that will take place and the advantage of rest and being able to kind of scout your opponents in real time.
So let's look at the bracket if Utah State loses, but all of the other, again, all the favored teams win. Again, San Diego State over UNLV, Colorado State over Boise State, so on and so forth. I know none of those matchups are guaranteed, but I did also generate a version of the bracket in which all of those results stay the same, but New Mexico ends up beating Utah State. And essentially what you have is New Mexico goes to the 1 seed instead of being the what were they in the other one?
They were third.
Yeah, they were third seed. So they go from 3 to 1. Utah State goes from 1 to 2, and San Diego State goes from 2 to 3. So
is that an updated graphic that you have? Because I'm not seeing it.
It's probably because
maybe I'm delayed.
It's because the stream is probably 20 to 30 seconds behind in real time. It'll show up. I'm trying to talk enough so that you'll eventually see it. Okay,
now I see it.
It'll swap back for a second because I went back and double check it. But yeah, so essentially Utah State goes from playing the winner of Boise, Wyoming to playing the winner of UNLV Fresno. Now, with how volatile UNLV is, there is a real world in which Fresno ends up being the team the Aggies play. And you'd certainly root for that.
Yeah.
For the very reason that you do not want to be facing UNLV. Like, pretty much, I think any other, team like San Diego State, Grand Canyon, New Mexico, any of them are probably okay with facing UNLV. In that it's as hard as any other team. But for Utah State, they are the one team that is going to be fearing UNLV, or you would actually hope that they're almost kind of hoping they face UNLV as, a means of, cathartic revenge and all that.
Right. Now, Fresno State played UNLV only once, and Fresno State won that game. It was a close one, 98-96.
Oh yeah, that
was a barn burner.
And was that one at UNLV or at Fresno?
It was at Fresno.
Yeah, because that was the one that UNLV just collapsed at the end there. I was watching that game. I should know better.
Yes.
Or I watched the end.
Tight game, but Fresno won the one time that they met each other. So could be interesting having them face each other once again. But as you said, Fresno State very well could win that game. And if so, that'd be a massive gift to the Utah State Aggies.
Yeah, that would be the best thing. Pac-12 helping Pac-12, just like with Colorado State beating New Mexico. Pac-12 helping Pac-12.
That's right.
So, yeah, Utah State, they would face the winner of UNLV Fresno. And then on the other side of that lower bracket, you'd have Colorado State and San Jose playing each other. Again, all these first-round matchups are the same. Utah State and New Mexico beating each other does not affect the first round at all. If you swap around some of the other games, then that's going to, if in the scenario, again, the website that I built this on, or generated this scenario from, you can change some of those first round matchups. We don't really have time to get into every single, what if Boise loses to Colorado State or Boise beats Colorado State, there's some that can change the math a little bit. But yeah, Utah State would be on the top end of that lower bracket. Then it'll be San Diego State as the 3rd seed. They'd play the winner of Colorado State, San Jose. Who knows the way Colorado State's playing? And if the Aggies got to the semifinal, if they managed to either avoid UNLV or beat UNLV, they'd be facing a really hot Colorado State team. Mind you, the Aggies basically beat Colorado State at their best. When Colorado State was at their best, heading into Mountain West play, they absolutely crushed them. Then they beat them, and I think that is still the most recent loss for Colorado State. So beat them when they were at their best, and then beat them right before they ramped up to becoming their best yet again. So it'd be kind of an interesting thing where
Colorado State's last loss was at Wyoming.
Oh, was it at Wyoming? Okay.
Yeah, because after Utah State beat them, they lost by 23 at San Diego State, and they lost in the border war by 11 to Wyoming.
Okay, so I'm off on there. So I was going to make this fun point about how Utah State has heralded Colorado State's best and worst, and half of that point is no longer relevant anymore.
Yeah.
So
move on.
That would be an interesting. That would have been an interesting storyline, I guess, if my memory, which is faulty, comported with reality. But yeah, so that's kind of where we're looking at with some of the Mountain West tournament scenarios. Again, here we've got the one on screen. That's if Utah State loses to New Mexico, and then all the other favored teams win, and then we'll flash a second. This is what happens if the Aggies beat New Mexico and all the other favored teams win. Again, if you go to bball.notnothing.net, that's where I generated this. You can play around with it all you want. So that's what the Mountain West tournament scenarios look like for the Aggies.
Yeah, and it's helpful to look at that as what potentials could look like, but in no way am I going to say that I agree that all favored teams are going to win this weekend.
Yeah, I know that was the trickiest
the way
thing.
This conference has gone. Anything can happen to anyone on any given day.
Yeah, because if all the favored teams won, Utah State would be in like 3rd place right now if that had happened like over the last few games. Of course, if the favored teams won, Utah State would have won a couple more of these games. But yeah, it's just that's where, like, you know, if Utah State wins, like, that's the thing, is that all these other games were like, do the favored teams win or not? Like, most of that just changes, like, you know, who do they play in the 8-9 matchup? You know, and whatnot. And like, does UNLV end up as, like, I don't know if they can get as high as the 5, because that's where if they end up in that 5-12, they end up on Utah State's side of the bracket.
Yeah, they're among 4 teams that are tied for 5th.
So that might be the best thing you can do if you're looking for, you know, just watch for where UNLV can end up, because that's the team Utah State has that poor matchup with. But I think as long as they end up as a 1 seed, and if you keep UNLV out of that 8-9 matchup, where again, like when I talk about all favored teams losing, them losing has them not being in that 8-9 matchup. So I think it's fairly unlikely they end up in that 8-9. I don't think there's a whole lot of situations they can end up there. Again, I'd have to test that. Let's see, where are they at right now? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. They're in the 8 spot right now. They're tied with 4 teams for, what is that?
For 5th.
5th through 8th.
Yeah.
So and them losing.
And there's a slim chance that Grand Canyon could lose, and then just adds one more in that same frame of schools that are in there. And Grand Canyon is hosting Fresno. It's Grand Canyon is likely going to be favored by a pretty strong margin, but as we said, anything can happen in this league on any given day. So it's a very tight race in the middle, which is going to have major implications for what next week's bracket looks like for the Mountain West.
Yeah. So here's the scenario where Utah State can end up playing UNLV, and that's basically you're going to want to root for Colorado State to beat Boise State, because if where I think I have all else equal. I mean, for one, I guess you could root for UNLV against San Diego State. That would keep UNLV. So root for UNLV and Colorado State. If you want the Aggies to avoid UNLV in the 8-9 matchup, then root for UNLV themselves on Friday.
Yeah.
And then root for Colorado State on Saturday. Of course, that's going to be happening at the same time. So if Utah State loses, then you actually want UNLV to end up in the 8-9. Again, if you're doing the dance around UNLV, but if you're wanting to be fearless like Utah State should be, then it shouldn't matter. It should just all be down to win on Saturday.
Right. Yeah. Win on Saturday. Let the cards fall wherever they may. But with these 4 teams tied, we've talked about how muddy it is, and Grand Canyon is just a game ahead of those. 2 of those teams play each other, so there's going to be separation here, and so there's going to be some division. And Boise State very well could be that team that ends up in 9th, but could be Boise State and UNLV that are down in that territory. Maybe even Wyoming as that 9th seed, but Wyoming's more likely to be the 9. It's just who's going to be the 8.
Yeah.
So it's fun to look at all this and just how much variance there is on these standings, just with one game to go for everybody.
Yeah. Let's take a quick transition here. Again, we'll thank one of our sponsors, Mountain Valley Heating and Air. Again, indoor air in our area can be up to 5 times dirtier than outdoor air, especially during dry winter months. Dry air keeps dust and allergens floating longer, sending them deeper into your lungs and making sickness more likely. Mountain Valley Heating and Air installs high-efficiency steam humidifiers that use 1 gallon of water with no waste to improve air quality. Call 435-753-5170. So let's shift to an interesting topic. Eric, you saw a post earlier today. It was from Front Office Sports, where they were interviewing the athletic director of Miami of Ohio, and his name is suddenly escaping me. I didn't put it in my notes.
Saylor, I forget his first name. David Saylor.
Yeah, David Saylor. So
Sayler, not like
this
on a ship sailor. Yeah. He's an athletic director for Miami of Ohio, and he was interviewed by.
Yeah, it was Front Office Sports.
Front Office Sports, asking him about, there's been discussion recently about conference expansion. And there's been voices out there that are suggesting that Miami of Ohio should not get in as an at-large team, despite a perfect record. Like, they have won wherever they've gone. And they're still on the bubble? How could this be possible? And so the question was like, well, could conference or NCAA tournament expansion help schools like Miami of Ohio who find themselves in similar situations?
Yeah, so let's
play. And he had some pretty interesting comments on that, pretty strong opinions about it.
Yeah, so let's play the clip, and hopefully it runs well here on YouTube.
I guess my question to you is, would you like to see the NCAA tournament expanded, and would you like to see a lot more schools like your own be the beneficiaries of that?
Two-part answer. One, I would love for it to expand, but only if it did what you just said, and it's not going to. It's going to benefit the power conferences, so I'm not in favor of expansion because of enough background conversations I've heard as to how it will work. So I don't think it's a good idea. And some of these teams at the bottom of the power conferences, look, they have every advantage when the season starts. They can create their own schedule. They don't have to play road games. We've won 13 true road games this year. We've played more true road games non-conference than some of these Power 4 schools play in 5 years total. And it's because we have to. We don't have a choice. And that's why some of my tweets lately have been quoting Yoda fighting the evil empire, because that's what I feel like we're doing. This whole system is rigged in their favor. And then at the end, they use why you didn't play anybody against you when they help create that system. So it really is this never-ending battle, and expanding the tournament is going to do nothing more than just giving them more access. And I don't think that's what the argument should be. The argument should be who's the most deserving teams of what it is, and let's have some parameters around the good mid-major programs and having their place. 2 teams made the 12-team college football playoff. You're telling me you can't find one more spot for an undefeated team in a 68-team tournament? I just don't buy it.
Yeah, so, and I thought the most telling thing about this whole thing, about the way that the power conferences kind of treat the mid-majors, was underneath the post on the good old X Twitter was a Sooners fan saying, well, schedule a Power 4 team. And it was like, you just don't get it.
No. And who was it? There was another publication Same guys who did the stuff about women's soccer just the other day and how Utah State spent more than anybody. Their thing today was about doing a grandma request to see who did Miami of Ohio, who have they tried to schedule games with. And they've freely shared their emails, and they actively tried, like for multiple teams. They tried, like, we will go to your place. We'd love to, are you available on this day? And they actively tried to go find P4 or P5, whatever, power conference teams to get on their schedule. They were willing to travel to go play those games. And then teams wouldn't schedule them.
Yeah,
and we know Jared Calhoun has lamented about this.
Yeah, there was one post I saw, and I want to say, like, I want to take this with a grain of salt, because, like, I'm not sure the source and I'm not sure, like, what the situation is, but it was almost like this almost marketplace type, screenshot of, like, it was Oklahoma State apparently trying to send out a message saying, hey, we're looking for a game, like, supposedly on some kind of network that would probably be only available to coaches and whatnot. But it seemed to indicate, like, hey, we're looking for a buy game, but you have to be like 250 plus in the net.
Yeah, yes, I saw that.
And I think it came from, someone reputable. And that's why I was inclined to believe it. It wasn't just some random on Twitter. But that's kind of that's the situation they're in. Like, BYU and Utah won't play Utah State. And if we're doing grammar requests for Miami of Ohio, I think I'm probably going to go send one to Utah State now. Just be like, all right, I'd like to get the emails you sent to everyone. Because
to see who you've tried to schedule.
From what I've been told is that they've reached out to basically everyone. And so, who knows? I'll double check on that. And there's things I'm working on that relate to this. Because let's circle this all back to the NCAA tournament. What happens with expansion? And I've kind of seen an interesting trend. And interesting in a couple of different ways. Because here's the thing, Eric. What was it, a few weeks or months ago? I went on this big old rant about how, like, I was getting fiery language and calling people out and just about naming names about how the NCAA tournament shouldn't expand because it only favors the power conference teams. And I went and looked at the numbers. I said, all right, what if we had expanded the last, 10 tournaments? Because since about 2015, the NCAA has released, here are the first 4 teams that didn't get in. It's not speculation. It is, if we had 4 more spots in the tournament, these 4 teams get in. And so I went back as far as I could find that information, which I got back to 2015 before I just ran out of the ability to find if they even did a first 4 out, an official first 4 out.
Right, from the committee. Yeah.
And then I went to Bracket Matrix, and then I said, all right, these are the first 4 the NCAA would be in. Then I looked at, okay, what do the bracketologists think who would be the next 4? And so I went through all of that data. So this is back to 2015. So we're 10 tournaments in the past. What if those tournaments had been expanded by 8? Because that seems to be what they're aiming for, is to add 8 more spots. So that's where I was basing this off of. And the thing is, Eric, if you retroactively go back and expand the tournament to 76 teams, it helps mid-majors more than it hurts them. Because you look at, over these, last year it wouldn't have helped much because they would have only got 1. But before that, they would have got 4 more. And before that, they would have gotten 1 more. But then 3 more, 4, 1, 3, 2, 6. They had 12 extra teams over a 2-year span in 2015 and 2016. So that's one half of this, though, because that's not the end of the story.
No.
Don't watch this clip and say, well, Jason just said that it would benefit mid-majors because of the retroactive data, because there is a trend.
It's changing.
Yeah, and it's a little more devious because it's not just that, mid-majors can't be considered, good teams. A lot of it is they can no longer get the metrics. The, AD for Miami of Ohio kind of outlined where the strength of schedule, we had that, clip with we showed from Bruce Pearl talking about the schedule and different things like that, how mid-majors, it has to be through the conference tournament. because I've been looking at other data with the NCAA tournament and with seeding. And the thing that I'm noticing is that there are still roughly the same number of teams in the NCAA tournaments from mid-majors. There's a slight downtrend, although the data is just kind of rocky and looks like a mountain anyway. It varies wildly by season because there's some years where you got a ton, some years where there's just a valley, and that's just year-to-year variance. But the thing that I'm seeing that is much more consistent is how many mid-major teams get decent seeding in the NCAA tournament, and it's going down. For the first time, and I have data now going back to, on this specific aspect, I think back to 2003-ish, where I've gone and logged this data. The last two tournaments were the first time in the 21st century, unless it happened in 2001 or 2002, where I haven't quite logged that data yet. First time in the 21st century that we have had back-to-back seasons without a mid-major team with a 1, 2, or a 3 seed. It's the first time that had happened. In, again, 21st century, 64, 68 team era. And we're staring straight in the face of that happening for a third straight year. It had happened a couple of times where there wasn't a mid-major team in the top 3 seeds. But again, that was random variance. It just didn't happen that year. But we're looking at potentially 3 straight years now, where it had never happened in back-to-back seasons. We're looking at 3 straight years where there is just not a powerhouse among the mid-majors. There are good teams among the mid-majors.
And you're not including Gonzaga in that mix?
No, Gonzaga's in there. Like, you go back, and a lot of times there are 1, 2, 3. Like, Gonzaga right now, they're projected as a 4 seed. So they wouldn't be in there. If they sneak up to a 3 seed, we'll avoid that, that 3 years in a row situation. But say they don't end up as a 3 seed. Like, because a lot of times you had teams like Gonzaga, Houston, heck, once upon a time Louisville was technically mid-major based on my criteria, where mid-major is anything except for kind of, SEC, Big East, Big 10, Big 12, ACC, the old Pac-12. That was, the power conferences. But yeah, you had teams, Memphis was in there as well. But we are seeing one aspect of this is, Louisville, Butler, DePaul, like a bunch of these teams moved to the Big East. Teams of, Houston, Cincinnati. Cincinnati was another one that was they would be in that, literally 1 seeds. You were having 1 seeds out of the mid-majors, like St. Joe's, Cincinnati, Houston, Gonzaga. Wouldn't be every year, but somebody would be in that top 3 seeds. And now the highest we're seeing is like this year, Gonzaga at 3 or 4. And then you're in the 7 seeds. I think St. Mary's might get a 6 seed. Like, you were just no longer seeing the mid-majors getting good seeding in the NCAA tournament. And that ends up becoming this self-fulfilling cycle of last year was, I think, one of the first years, I think it was the first time since 2016 that no mid-major team made the Sweet 16. There were only 5 teams that made the second round. Which was again, I think, the lowest since 2016.
It's getting harder and harder to have a Cinderella story in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah.
And that's largely because of seeding.
Yeah. And like in 2016, it was a one-off. It was explainable through random variance. If you look at the probabilities of teams making it to the second round, it did dip in 2016, but that was a random variance thing. And the next year, I think 2017, like there were a bunch of Cinderellas, or like 2018, like it was a year or two after that you had some amazing Cinderella stories. And again, I've just been compiling all this data. So where 2016 was very clearly a one-off, where it's a valley. It's up here, it dips, and then it goes straight back up the next year. We are seeing a downhill, and it might be leveling off down. Where last year, if last year were a one-off, it'd be a one-off. Nobody made the Sweet 16. You only had 5 in the second round. Whatever. It happens. There's that kind of random variance. But if we hit 2 years in a row, and where we're seeing this complete refusal from power conference teams to schedule the mid-majors, that's where it's not so much that, expansion will hurt the mid-majors, because expansion would only include the power conference teams. If it were 5-6 years ago, expansion would help the mid-majors. It actually would.
Yeah.
But because of other aspects in the changing landscape of how the power conferences treat the mid-majors, how scheduling works, then yeah, we've passed an era in which expansion would help. And that's maybe why we're seeing this push for expansion, is because the high major teams know that they've pulled off the coup, and now expansion will solely benefit them, as opposed to it would have helped mid-majors 5-10 years ago. Now it will not.
They now know how to rig the system in their favor, and so let's move it forward. So I did find the original article. This was from Matt Brown. It was published today, and it's from extrapointsmb.com. But they did a GRAMA request, Freedom of Information Act, got some of the details about Miami of Ohio. Like, who did they try to schedule? And here's their emails that they send out. Now, this is a subscription site to get all the full content of what they've produced. So it's only a few games here, or teams that they try to reach out to that's publicly available. But they reach out to Pitt, say, hey, we've got a game on December 7th. Can we do a guarantee game on that day? Well, no. Pitt ended up having somebody else. They played Hofstra. They actually lost that game. And then they reached out to Wisconsin. Can we play you on Wisconsin? We have this date. And there was no response back. They tried Marquette. Like, they tried some teams that were strong in the net, and they tried some teams that really weren't that strong in the net. Like, this won't hurt you if you play us, basically, and trying to find games. And they couldn't get these games scheduled. Like, they tried. And that's the problem with this system, is that the selection committee in March will say, they'll look at your body of work, they'll look at your resume, and they'll say, well, you didn't win your conference tournament. So do we look at the rest of your body of work? Well, you just had a bunch of quad 3 and quad 4 games. Doesn't look like you really tried to play anybody. We better not have you there.
Yeah.
And in Sailor's point is, these other teams from power conferences, they have every advantage built into their conference schedule. They could be a mediocre team, but they're going to have quad 1 games and quad 2 games falling all around them. We're not doing anything. We're not trying. And he's absolutely right on the other point, too, is these teams don't travel. They never really leave their homes. They don't have to. And but there's an increasing pressure on them from their conference overlords that you need to schedule other power conference teams. And that leaves very little room for teams like Miami of Ohio, even Utah State, who's in a conference that's a higher level, more respectable level, but still a challenge for these games to happen and be on the schedule. The only way you can really, by and large, get these teams on your schedule is if you get lucky and have one of them in the same multi-team event that you're going to participate in.
Yeah, but a lot of them are playing in multi-team events that are essentially branded as, well, you don't have to, well, not branded, but like behind the scenes, they're being pitched as, you don't have to play any mid-majors. Right.
There's no risk here. If you lose, you're going to lose against another power conference team, so it's not really going to hurt your resume that much. Heaven forbid you go and participate in one of these and you lose to Hofstra.
Yeah,
or Miami, Ohio.
Yeah, it's just the negative thing. And I've asked coaches about it before, and again we'll probably go and I'll probably do some investigative reporting on Utah State and heck, probably some of the other Pac-12 teams. I should probably put in for a bunch of them, but yeah, it's just it's becoming this rigged system, and Utah State isn't being penalized by it too much. Utah State is actually in a pretty fortunate area where they have a decent enough strength of schedule where if Utah State went undefeated like Miami of Ohio, Utah State would be like a 2 or a 3 seed. Like if they went undefeated against their schedule, they'd be rewarded for it. Heck, they might even be close to, they probably wouldn't be a number 1 seed, but like, I mean, if they just straight up went undefeated against this schedule, like it is a tough enough schedule that it would be respected. And as with their, Pac-12, future Pac-12 schedule. But yeah, like Utah State is in this perpetual cycle of constantly trying to beg teams to play them in the non-conference. And, next year, Jared Calhoun was trying to line up some stuff, especially with other mid-majors, to try and have the mid-majors kind of band together and help each other out by playing each other in some multi-team events or in some showcases. But that's like the best that they can do is to have, Utah State and San Francisco and Memphis and Gonzaga and all these teams like trying to play each other. But in that respect, they almost kind of end up hurting each other too, because they play each other and one of them's got to lose.
Right. Yeah.
And so but in the power conferences, when they lose to each other, it's no biggie because they lost to another power conference team. But if they lose to a mid-major, then it hurts them. And if Utah State, or a mid-major loses to another mid-major, it specifically hurts the one that loses. But if BYU loses to Iowa State, nobody moves.
Yeah, the biggest outlier has been Gonzaga and how they've been able to build a reputation that they can go play blue chip teams. And they'll play them on the road. They'll host them at their house.
Yeah, because at this point they've achieved that essentially. They're mid-major outlets who don't consider them a mid-major, and
it took them multiple years of deep runs in the tournament before teams would look at them and say, "By playing you, I'm not going to get hurt.
Yeah,
it's not going to be embarrassing if I lose to you."
Yeah, if you lose to Gonzaga, everyone's like, "Well, join the club."
Yeah, kudos for playing Gonzaga, getting them on your schedule.
And Utah State and San Diego State, they're trying to achieve something close to that status, but Gonzaga had to earn that beyond what was necessary before they even got that status, where, if you just are inducted into a power conference, you get it immediately no matter what, even if you're not even that good. The lower ends of the power conferences won't schedule you, partly because they're afraid of falling even further behind if they lose to you. So that's kind of the issue that we run into. Let's transition one more time. We're going to talk about a little bit about the Utah Jazz, a little about the Utah Mammoth, probably more about the Utah Jazz before we wrap things up here. But again, a reminder, one of our sponsors, Young Power Sports of Logan, they've got Cache Valley's largest and most complete power sports service shop. Again, it's now open at Young Power Sports of Logan. They service all brands, all makes, all sizes, motorcycles, ATVs, UTVs, and more. No guesswork, no shortcuts, just trained technicians who fix it right the first time. They can handle Can-Am, Kawasaki, Polaris, Ski-Doo. They can get it in and out, done right, guaranteed. Pickup and delivery is available. They can do so within a 25-mile radius. So get back on the road, the trail, or the track fast. Schedule your service now at 755-7111. That's Young Power Sports Logan Service Department, 755-7111. So, and on that Young Power Sports of Logan text line, 9315 sending this in a while back. We were actually talking about the Mountain West Tournament at the time. Just missed this because I wasn't paying attention to it, but saying the best case for USU at the Mountain West Tournament is if somehow Air Force can pull out a win. I mean, yeah, that's true. That would be true. But then and then saying and a win over Grand Canyon. That would be nice if Air Force won their first round matchup, then beat Grand Canyon. But then if they're on that kind of a roll, wouldn't you almost kind of be a little scared? It's like if you're an 8 seed and you face a 16 seed in the second round. It's like, okay, yeah, but like what they just beat a 1 seed. What about us?
Yeah.
That's kind of the situation they're in. 2444. They text us in just a couple minutes ago saying last year's NCAA tournament was disappointing in lack of significant upsets, especially beyond the first round. I would love to see a deep run by a mid-major team this season. The Utah State and St. Louis are the most likely candidates, but you never know who might rise up and pull off a big upset. And nobody ever knows who Cinderella is until she's riding down in a pumpkin.
Yeah, does the slipper still fit?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, St. Louis, they've had a good stretch. They've had a good season. Miami, Ohio, gosh, maybe.
I know they
could do it.
Yeah, I think it would be the most amazing thing if Miami, Ohio made like a Final Four run.
Yeah, it would be.
Like just as this giant middle finger to everyone.
You denied us every opportunity. We're still going to go out there and make something
just to
of
be
this.
like, screw you. But of course, everyone in the power conferences are basically saying to themselves, yeah, they'll lose in the first round.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you're going to put them against like a 5 seed.
Right. In all those years, Utah State had great teams with Stu Morrill. They always had to play like blue chip teams in the NCAA tournament. Like the odds were always stacked against them. They could never get a decent seed to be in a scenario where they could win a game and go to the next round. It was always so hard. They're playing Kentucky and Kansas and Marquette and all these really good teams. And Washington, when they had Patrick Roy, who was the rookie of the year, and he was a baller. Like they always had.
Do you mean Brandon Roy?
Excuse me, Brandon Roy. Sorry,
Patrick Waugh was a hockey player.
Brandon Roy. But like they always have these good teams, but they'd run up into these buzzsaws of other teams that they had to face. So it was always tough to gain traction. Like they looked good in the regular season, but they always struggled in the post. And that was always, and that has kind of been used against teams like Utah State and against Miami, Ohio. Like, okay, great. You've had a great run in your regular season, but against whom? Like, we don't really know how good you really are.
Yeah.
Because you're beating teams that are really not very good. So it's easy to stack wins. But once you go up against some legitimate competition, how good are you really? And that's the point that Bruce Pearl was trying to make. It's like these teams that maybe don't have the best records in the SEC or the Big Ten, they still have to play like tough games against amazing talent every game. And so they may not have the same record. They still know what it means to play tough competition and week in and week out, game in and game out.
Yeah, but they're doing about as good as anyone else would.
Yeah,
that's the thing. So let's
but
talk.
The thing is that you still want to give those guys a chance.
Yeah, you do.
Like you've played a great season. This Miami team has gone on the road. They've won at home. They've won on the road. They've played a lot of games away. It's not easy to win that many games. I don't care where you are and what level you're at. It's tough to win that many games. Clearly, as we've seen in the Mountain West, where any given night, a team you think should win falls flat.
Yeah, suddenly they're not.
Yeah.
They're not doing what they're supposed to be doing. Let's finish off. Let's talk about the Utah Jazz for just a little bit more here. Although one interesting note about the NBA is that Jason Tatum, the man who spells his name wrong, he is potentially going to be returning. And that's kind of interesting because, like, we talk about Miyashketa being on a contending team. Yeah, they're going to be gearing up for the postseason where they've been one of the top teams even without Jason Tatum. Of course, it'll be really interesting if he comes back and then they suck when he's with them. That would make for a really interesting scenario.
Yeah, sometimes that happens. It just disrupts the flow of the rest of the guys that have been going.
Yeah, it was the whole thing like the Patrick Ewing effect or whatever. I forget who came up with that. But yeah, there's that where the Celtics could be gearing up for a championship run. Miyashketa could become a 2-time NBA champion, although you got two buzzsaws in the West, or at least one with Oklahoma City. Spurs are kind of a rising talent. But hey, Detroit's also they're finally after their tank, hint, hint, NBA.
Yeah.
Team tanked. Now they're good. They pulled that off. So we'll see how that ends up panning out. But the Jazz, who have now lost 6 straight games, lost another one to the Philadelphia 76ers, another game in which they were leading late in the fourth quarter. Keontae George going for 30 points. He was 10 of 24, so slightly inefficient in those 30 points, but not too bad. 10 of 24 from the field, 5 of 11 from 3, and went 5 of 6 at the free throw line. Then you had Isaiah Collier doing well off the bench yet again, 18 points, 5 assists. Ace Bailey somewhat inefficient, 12 points. He needed 16 shots to get those 12 points. So that's probably where they end up losing this game. But the Jazz with a bunch of scrubs are challenging some of the top teams in the league. The Philadelphia, not the top teams in the league,
but good teams.
But yeah, good playoff teams. The 76ers, the Nuggets. This is where you're beginning to, especially with where Keontae George is leading them in this respect. Because if they were getting blown out and Keontae's putting up 35 in a 20-point blowout, you'd be less encouraged. But we're in back-to-back games where Keontae George isn't putting up empty calorie scoring.
Right.
Which is, it's the kind of player I feared he would be. I've been completely wrong about Keontae George. I feel like I need to say that again for how many times I doubted him. I was wrong. Let me look at the camera and say this. I was wrong, really bad about Keontae George because he's not empty calorie scoring anymore. This is a guy who puts up 30 and even a slightly inefficient 30, and he's leading an offense in a game in which they challenge a playoff team. And he did it against the Nuggets, too. And yes, they did lose, but look at what Keontae's got around him as well. And this is where you're beginning to get really excited about what the Jazz could potentially be next year. It kind of sucks that we have to be in the situation where I keep having to talk about next year and write off all these and even root for the Jazz to lose, because you'd like to see Keontae George pulling off the clutch moments to actually do a win, because that's where he's actually come up short. Is he's had some turnovers and missed shots in the clutch to where if he hits those, you win. You'd like to see him actually make those.
Right.
So that's one area where he's coming up short. But again, if you, instead of having, Cody Williams and Elijah Harkless out there in clutch situations, imagine Keontae playing off of Lowry Markkanen, Jaren Jackson, running, imagine running, Keontae George running pick and roll with Walker Kessler, and he's able to, one, just attack out of that pick and roll, just spam pick and rolls with that in the last 3 or 4 minutes of a clutch game. And he's either making something happen because maybe in that night he's going for 35, but if they collapse on him, he's either dumping it off to Walker Kessler or Jaren Jackson Jr. from the dunker spot, or he's slinging it into the corner for Lowry Markkanen, who's either going to drain a three or he's going to close out and just absolutely throw it down on whoever you've got because you ain't blocking 7-foot Lowry Markkanen on the dunk. Like, that's the kind of thing that we're potentially setting up for next year.
Yeah, I really have enjoyed watching his growth as a player. And what I've really enjoyed about the Jazz in these last couple of games is like they have all these guys, they're stars, are all on the bench. They know how to develop these guys. And even though a lot of them, like, we may not really recognize who they are, like, who's that guy running around in a Jazz jersey? I don't even know who that is. He's got them playing tough. Like the franchise mentality may be, we don't want to win too many games to better our position for the draft. But the player mentality is, I'm still going to go out there and play. And I'm going to play hard. A lot of these guys are playing for NBA contracts.
Yeah.
They're playing to get noticed by somebody to be deep on someone else's bench. They're trying to get noticed to get a contract, period. So these guys are playing hard. And they're playing good teams and pushing them to the edge. So it has renewed confidence in me in Will Hardy and how he can still work with a bunch of no-names and compete at a high level. And it also shows that there is promise in some of these young guys and how they are developing. Others, jury's still out. And maybe it's too far gone for some of them, but
yeah, we'll see. But we are
I'm enjoying what I'm seeing, and it still gives me purpose and reason to check in on these Jazz games to see, like, these are a bunch of scrubs. So some of them are like legitimate, like, guys are going to be part of the future, and it's kind of exciting to see them grow into those roles.
Yeah, and it's also imagine AJ DeBonsa on this team, or Darren Peterson. Or Cam Boozer. That's, of course, AJ DeBonsa might stay in college,
Yeah, you never know. Jazz, by the way, are playing the Wizards tonight, as you already said.
That game doesn't start until...
No, it's underway.
Oh, is it already underway? So we prioritized the Mammoth over this one.
Yes, we did, because they are in the playoff hunt. But Trae Young making his debut for the Wizards in this one, but Jazz are currently in the lead.
18-14, Ace Bailey with 9 early points. I have to go home and watch this one.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, and Isaiah Collier starting. Is he going to play 48 minutes again? 48 minutes, and you have to guard Trae Young.
He's already been to the bench at least for a second. He
I guess
doesn't
that's
have as
true.
many minutes as some of the other guys.
So he's not going to play 48 minutes, but yeah. No. So they have somebody. I guess Blake Hinson, is that the guy who came in for him? Or?
I guess.
Well, they have several guys who have played less than Ace and Cal have both played 7 minutes, but
Cody Williams has only played 5.
And John Contra and Isaiah Collier now they're starting to add him in there. Because there's only one guy who had come off the bench and was playing. It's but there's 3 guys who haven't played all the minutes.
Doesn't math.
Yeah, the math was not mathing there. So
now it says Isaiah Collier has played 7 minutes. So maybe he hasn't got out.
So it's Blake Hinson and Mo Bamba coming in. I think is this his first minutes? Or did he play in the other game?
He played in, I know he played in Philadelphia. I don't know if he played against Denver. I don't recall.
We'll have to look at that. And the Jazz have given up a bit of their 4-point lead. They're now only up by 2.
Yeah.
So shame there.
So you know what? There's a lot of guys you won't recognize and guys who likely won't be on the roster next year. But there are a few to still pay attention to watch them play. Isaiah Collier, Kyle Filipowski, Keontae George, though George isn't playing.
Yeah, he's
tonight.
not playing. So basically, with this one, like, to me, the ones to look for, because Kyle Filipowski, Ace Bailey, Isaiah Collier, like, those are the guys that feel like they have a best chance among the younger guys that are playing. Like Cody Williams, I'm still waiting for him to prove me wrong if he ever does.
The Cody Williams experience, he disappears for months, and then he
has
reappears.
He has one decent half.
Yeah, he reappears, and like, oh, maybe this guy has potential, and then he disappears again.
But yeah, to me, and like Ace Bailey, he's up to 11 points now. So him and Kyle Filipowski have 18 of the 20 points. Isaiah Collier's got the other 2. So I guess coincidentally, the three guys I highlighted as guys you want to watch for as guys who have odds to be. Those are the young guys of the future.
Actually doing things.
John Contra will probably be on the. Well, I don't know if he's a free agent. He's the kind of guy you would have. I don't know if they'll have him specifically, but a decent defensive wing off the bench. Today he's starting. But yeah, Bailey, Collier, and Filipowski are guys that you imagine will be contributing for the Jazz. They'll be coming off the bench next season for the Jazz, but they're guys who can play key roles. Like Ace Bailey could become a starter down the line for the Jazz. We'll see. Maybe Cal Filipowski becomes a starter if the Jazz end up trading Walker Kessler for some reason or don't re-sign him or whatnot. So
yeah,
there are guys to keep an eye on for the Jazz.
Yeah, it's kind of painful to watch for some of these games, but these guys are getting a great run and a great on-ramp to get themselves ready to play at a higher level.
Yeah.
Because they're getting a lot of minutes. They're not going to get that many minutes next year, some of them, but they at least know what's expected and how to approach basketball. They don't maybe have a winning mindset, but the other guys that are currently out who will play, they do have winning mindsets.
Yeah. And that's something they can try and develop, that winning mindset. They kind of done that over the last couple of games. They haven't won, but like they've been in clutch games with good teams. Of course, now they're playing bad teams.
They know how to play tough and hang in there and push them to the limit.
All right, well, that is going to do it for us today. We aren't going to go the full 2 hours. We're pretty much out of topics here. We'll probably be leaving a lot more of the Mammoth talk. We're going to probably rope JD into one of these shows to help us out, and probably bring on one of the members of the Utah Mammoth broadcast crew.
Yeah, it'd be great to get their perspective on some of the deals that have been made.
Yeah, just to talk more about the Mammoth, their playoff push, the trades they're trying to make to enhance that playoff push. They're buyers and sellers, and the Mammoth are buyers. It's nice to root for a team that's a buyer. That's nice. Where I root for the Jazz, and it's like they're a seller in more ways than one.
Yeah.
It's the seller as in selling things, and the seller as in that's their current location.
It's in the bottom of the building. Yeah.
So, but the Mammoth, they're not at the top, but they're trying to get there and trying to make that playoff push. So that's going to do it for us today. Thank you so much for everyone who stuck with us. Obviously, those listening to the radio portion and then checking in on our YouTube stream again. This will kind of become the norm for us to keep our shows running as long as we can get them, even on days where the Mammoth or the Jazz are interrupting us on the radio waves.
Yeah, we should have a full show on Friday.
Yeah,
and so there's a lot to get into, previewing New Mexico. What does the full weekend look like with games? I know we kind of touched on that a little bit, but the end of the season is upon us in the Mountain West, but also the women's tournament in the Mountain West is underway. We now know what Utah State, who they'll face in the women's bracket. And a lot of different things for the weekend. It's a busy, interesting weekend as a lot of some conferences are already starting their conference tournaments as well. So we'll look at some of those and games of interest that worth paying attention to because they may be future conference members with the Utah State Aggies.
Yeah. So we will dive into all of that starting tomorrow on Friday on the Full Court Press and here on YouTube. Have a good evening, everyone.